It was the kind of evening that looked flawless from the outside. Warm lights spilling through the restaurant windows, glasses chiming, a soft murmur of conversation under a canopy of twinkling lights. I had been here before, but never like this. Tonight was her birthday, and the table was crowded with her friends, co-workers, even her sister, all dressed as if the night revolved around them too. I wore the navy blazer she always complimented. The one she said made me look presentable in public. I walked in holding the small box I had wrapped myself, the sort of care reserved for someone you truly love. She stood at the head of the long table, champagne in hand, filling the room with that laugh of hers, the one that used to feel like sunlight but now sounded more like glass shattering. When she noticed me, she smiled, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Oh, here's my roommate," she announced loud enough for everyone to hear. Polite laughter followed, the kind that hides behind wine glasses and sideways glances. A few of her friends smirked. Someone murmured something I didn't catch. I paused for a fraction of a second. My mind ran the calculation. I could laugh it off like it was a private joke everyone else understood, or I could call it what it was: humiliation wrapped in a bow. Chose neither. I smiled, slid into the seat beside her, and set the small box in front of her. She ignored it, too busy telling a story about her latest work project, dropping names I didn't know, clearly expecting admiration. Dinner continued around me as though I didn't exist. Bits of conversation floated past. Vacations, promotions, gossip about someone's messy divorce. When her best friend asked about living together, she didn't correct her. "Oh, it works for now," she replied, shrugging as if I were nothing more than an old couch someone hadn't bothered to replace. My fork clinked against the plate as I pushed food around. Appetite gone. There's a particular kind of silence that swells inside when you realize the person you've been building a life with is slowly erasing you, one joke at a time. I'd felt it before in smaller doses. A jab here, a dismissive comment there. But tonight was the public performance. I remembered the first birthday we'd spent together. We'd only been dating a few months. I'd cooked badly in my tiny apartment, and she had called it the best meal she'd ever eaten. She kissed me like I had just given her the world. Now, 3 years later, I was seated among strangers while she rewrote me into a background character in her own life. Halfway through dessert, the waiter brought the check. She reached for her card with flair, announcing she was treating everyone. More applause, more shallow admiration she seemed to hoard like currency. But when the waiter returned, he bent down and said, "I'm sorry, ma'am, your card has been declined." Her cheeks flushed, but she laughed lightly. "Oh, must be a mistake. Try it again." I reached into my jacket pocket, not for my wallet, but for the envelope I had prepared earlier that day. I slid it across the table. Inside was the rent bill for our apartment, her portion itemized and neatly printed. Laughter faltered as she opened it. She glanced at me, a flicker of confusion, maybe anger, passing through her eyes. "Thought the roommate should get this to you?" I said softly, just loud enough for nearby diners to hear. Then I stood, placed my napkin on the table, and stepped out into the cool night air, leaving her to explain why her card failed and why her so-called roommate had vanished before the candles were even blown out. I didn't look back. Not yet. That would come later. Outside, the street was quiet compared to the restaurant's hum. My breath formed clouds in the cool air as I walked to the parking lot. No rush. I wasn't leaving in anger. I was leaving with clarity. Rage is loud and messy. Clarity is silent and exact. I sat in my car for a moment, fingers drumming on the wheel. Through the restaurant window, I saw shadows moving, her hand gesturing, friends leaning in, someone pretending to check their phone. The rent envelope lay open on the table like a dare she didn't know how to answer. Driving home felt surreal, like skipping school for the first time in years. Our apartment was dark when I arrived. I flipped on the light, scanning the familiar space. Her plants by the window, her coat tossed over a chair, the framed photo of us at the beach 2 summers ago. My smile looked real in that picture. I pulled my suitcase from under the bed. Not the weekend bag, but the full one I bought years ago, imagining we'd travel more together. The zipper sounded as I opened it and began pulling clothes from the closet. My shirts went in first, then my shoes, then the books I didn't trust her to keep safe. Each action deliberate. I wasn't running away. I was making a decision. We'd been in this place for nearly 2 years, and over that time, the warmth had slowly drained away. She started hosting more without asking, filling the living room with her coworkers, people I barely knew, who treated me like an afterthought. The jokes started small, harmless digs at first, but they sharpened until roommate became the word she used more often than boyfriend. I laughed along initially. I didn't realize I'd been teaching her she could say anything with zero consequence. Halfway through packing, I paused, perched on the edge of the bed. A memory came back. Her 29th birthday when she was sick with the flu. I had spent the day making soup, bringing tea, cueing her favorite movies. She told me I was the best thing in her life. Tonight, she'd introduced me like I was someone she'd picked up off Craigslist. I zipped the suitcase and carried it to the door. Then I retrieved a small folder from the desk. Copies of the lease, bank statements, receipts. I'd been keeping them for months, not expecting to need them. But some quiet voice inside had started whispering that maybe I wasn't as secure in this relationship as I believed. That voice had been right. I left my key on the counter. Before stepping out, I took one last look around. The apartment smelled faintly of her perfume, still quiet. For a moment, I almost wanted to stay, to wait for her to come home so we could talk it out. Then I pictured her at that restaurant, laughing as she called me her roommate, and the thought vanished. I stepped into the hallway, pulled the door shut, and didn't bother locking it. That night, I checked into a modest hotel across town, the kind with dated wallpaper and a front desk clerk who didn't ask questions. I set my suitcase on the bed, sat, and exhaled slowly. No triumph. No freedom yet. Just lighter, like I'd set down something I'd carried too long. My phone buzzed around midnight. Name. I let it ring. By the 4th missed call, a voicemail appeared. I didn't listen immediately. I set the phone face down and stared at the ceiling, letting the quiet replace her voice. I knew walking out of that restaurant was only the beginning. She would have questions soon. She'd realize I wasn't coming back. By morning, the calls had become texts. First sharp. Where are you? This isn't funny. Then softer. Can we talk, please? I didn't reply. I was sipping burnt hotel coffee when a knock came. Slow, measured. She knew I was inside. When I opened it, she stood there in yesterday's dress, makeup faded, hair pinned half-heartedly. For the first time in years, she looked less like the woman who commanded every room and more like the girl I'd met long ago. Uncertain. Searching. You just left, she said, stepping inside without waiting. You introduced me as your roommate, I replied. No anger. Just fact. She rolled her eyes. It was a joke. Everyone knew that. I let it linger. She shifted, the silence heavier than expected. Then her voice sharpened. You embarrassed me with that rent bill stunt. I almost laughed. You embarrassed yourself when your card got declined. I just handed you a piece of paper. Her jaw tightened. So what? You're leaving me over one comment. I stepped closer, not aggressive, just certain. This has been building for months. You stopped introducing me as your partner long ago. You made me the punchline at dinners, parties, even in front of your family. Last night just made it obvious. You don't see me as someone worth respecting. Her eyes flicked to the suitcase. So that's it. That's it, I said. The lease is in both our names for 3 more months. Handle the rent yourself or find another roommate. Her mouth opened, then nothing came out. She turned to the door. You'll regret this, she said finally. I shook my head. No. I regret staying as long as I did. When the door clicked shut, the room felt still again. My phone buzzed, one text. You're making a mistake. I didn't respond. Weeks later, word reached me through mutual friends. How I'd overreacted, how I couldn't take a joke. Some of them had been at that table. They'd seen her smirk when she called me her roommate. They'd seen me walk away. They knew it wasn't one night. It was every night before it. I found a small apartment of my own. Sunlight through the blinds in the morning. Quiet evenings. No commentary about how I wasn't enough. I started cooking badly just for myself. Felt good. One Saturday, I walked past the restaurant where it had all happened. Another birthday table, another group of friends clinking glasses. For a second it stung, a reminder of what I thought I had. Then I realized something. That night she thought she was joking at my expense. What she really did was give me permission. To leave without guilt, to stop being a shadow in someone else's spotlight.